Welcome GameDev Meetup 82. Um, we have two speakers today. Thank you. Uh, First speaker is here. Uh, Without further ado, applause please, and start the meetup.
And so, okay, Mehmet Zida, can you hear me? All right, so, hi, hello. I think I should start with a little introduction because some of you might be familiar with me, but I didn't know this community existed until this year's Global Game Jam. So I think some of you might not be familiar with me. So I am Alex Pine. I was this year in the Global Game Jam. I was the game designer, visual designer, and musician for the game Peaceful. But that might not be the perfect first impression. So I have to also clarify that I am a game design teacher at Riga State Gymnasium #1. So mostly what I do is game design. So today I'm also going to be talking about game design and more specifically invisible tutorials. So this is the topic that got me interested in game design, and this is a topic that I've been researching myself for quite a while now. 2 years ago, I spent half a year poking around with invisible tutorials, and recently I decided to revisit my research, kind of come to new conclusions, and I wrote an article on Gama Sutra, which got featured on the front page, and that was super epic. But I think enough introduction. I'm gonna tell you what I know about invisible tutorials. Hopefully you'll learn something useful and valuable today that you can use for your games. So let's start just with some basic stuff about tutorials. I think since this is a game dev meetup, then mostly I think all of us know what a tutorial is. So tutorials are those parts of a game that teach you how to play. Now here's a fun fact about most tutorials. Most tutorials are absolutely garbage. A lot of games really struggle with creating good tutorials, and a lot of games have tutorials so bad that they scare away a lot of new players. So the most common problems that a lot of tutorials have are that, first off, they can be rather annoying to the players. They often treat the players like children, like they explain very obvious things, and a lot of people find that particularly sort of annoying, condescending. Sometimes tutorials can seem too gamey to players, like they don't let the players forget that they're playing a game, which can lead to perhaps not the best experience sometimes. They sometimes give this sort of information overload to players, meaning the players get too much information too quickly and they have no idea what's going on. And most importantly, they often kind of get in the way of actually playing the game. Like, tutorials are nobody's favorite part of a game. Nobody sees a tutorial and thinks, hell yeah, this is what I came here for. This is a common problem where you'll sometimes see really good games with really not very good tutorials, and this is often painful to see. Like, I like those, but spending 20 minutes at the start just reading text mostly, that's not a very good first impression. I love Factorio, for example, but it gets away with stuff like telling the player that on the right side is the crafting menu, when on the right side it literally says crafting menu. Like, thank you, I know how to read. But there's also the thing that they're really important for your game. Like, they're the first impression that you leave to your players. If you get the tutorial incorrectly, that can have a very negative impact on your players' sort of retention, because most people, they play a game for, not most people, but a lot of people play the game for 5-10 minutes. They see if it's interesting, and if they don't like it, they just leave it and never pick it up again. So if a lot of people leave your game because they feel that the tutorial at the very beginning is perhaps too boring, then obviously that's not good for you. So you might want to kind of change something, but it's unclear on first impression what to do with your tutorials. And the thing is, so far the conclusion seems that tutorials are bad and we should get rid of them, but that's also definitely not true. Your game absolutely needs a tutorial. Now, sure, if you're making a platformer or something, then perhaps like capital G gamers will figure out how to jump and how to walk around. They probably won't have problem with that. They'll just fiddle around with the controls. But especially if your game has more abstract mechanics, then this is a huge problem. You definitely need tutorials. Like, you can't have a strategy game where you just drop the player into the action and you expect them to understand everything. The thing is that if the player is too confused to play, they will also drop the game. So where's the problem? What can we do? Now, obviously, there's some smaller things that you can do to improve your tutorials. Common problems are a lack of playtesting. Front loading is also a thing. I suggest that you try not to put your entire tutorial in the very beginning, but rather try to spread it out a little bit to avoid this information overload. And it's also useful to think about your tutorials as you're creating the rules themselves. But unfortunately, I don't think this is enough to kind of fix the main problem. And I think that where the main problem lies is how we think of tutorials. Because we often think of tutorials as text. When we think tutorials, we think text walls, we think pop-ups, we think stuff like controller schemes. And honestly, I don't think this is the correct approach tutorials. The thing is that with this direct teaching, we have all these problems, and what most people, what obviously there are text-based games, but mostly we don't come to games to read them. We come to games to play them. So I would say that a tutorial should also be played, not read. And that's, I think, one of the main problems with most tutorials, that you just read them. And now, obviously, you can't always avoid reading. Sometimes your tutorial will have this kind of text and pop-ups, which is what I call direct teaching. But I think that when possible, this should be avoided. And the most interesting thing is that when we drop this kind of direct teaching, what we are left with is an idea where we don't tell the players how the game works. We just let them figure it out themselves, but we make an environment where it's super easy to understand. Like we just create the game in a way that these rules seem absolutely obvious to the player. And that sounds like a very strange sort of idea, and that sounds very hard to pull off. But I'll show you some methods today on how to do this. So the most interesting thing about tutorials like this is that most players don't even notice the fact that they exist, and that's why we call them invisible tutorials. Those are tutorials that your player doesn't see. You can teach all the useful information of at least a game with less abstract mechanics. In a game like platformers, you absolutely don't need any direct tutorials. You can just do invisible tutorials and be completely fine. Now, in strategy games, it's more complicated, but the less abstract your mechanics, the easier it is to create invisible tutorials. So I have found 5 methods how to create these tutorials, and I will try to briefly explain all of them to you. So if you are struggling with creating a good and fun tutorial for your game, hopefully you will learn something useful today, and hopefully you will be able to create your own invisible tutorials using these methods. So first off, let's start with affordances. This is the most basic thing this is actually a type of invisible tutorials that almost all designers use. Often they just don't know that they're using affordances. They haven't heard this word. But if you are aware of the idea of affordances, then you can do a lot of interesting stuff with them. So the definition of affordances is that they are cues in design that indicate how something is used, but I think that's a little too wordy and complicated. Affordances are, I would say, properties of an object that show what it does. So you see spikes and you immediately understand that, yeah, they hurt you, they're bad. You see a gun and you immediately understand that, yeah, it shoots bullets. And in fact, you can look at any of these images and, okay, perhaps it's a little bit hard to make out the details here, but I just picked some objects that are absolutely obvious on first glance without any thinking. You understand that a bomb explodes, a zombie attacks you, fire hurts you, so on and so forth. And I think you can see how this is very useful, because you don't need absolutely any time to figure this out. This immediately seems absolutely obvious what these things do, and you can kind of use that to teach your players what different mechanics do. Uh, so, for example, if you start playing Blasphemous and you see this giant boss starting to attack you, uh, you know that it's an enemy. You know that it's a boss. You don't need like a text box that tells you, "Hey, buddy, this is an enemy. It will attack you," which is bad. It's absolutely obvious because you can just see what it looks like and immediately get this information. Nobody looks at this and thinks, "Oh, hey, nice, a new friend." Affordances are immediately understandable. They're intuitive, and this is why they are so useful to us. Because all the simple things in our games we can teach without any delay, without any complicated text boxes, just immediately. And now, how to actually design affordances is mostly the process is thinking about real life things that are similar to your mechanics. So if you've ever wondered why so many games use money as pickups, the game that actually made that popular is the original Super Mario Bros. Shigeru Miyamoto has a really fun quote about this. Thus, when we were thinking about something that anybody would look at and go, "I definitely want that," we thought, "Yep, it's gotta be money." So this is just an just an example of how to create an affordance. And now, if you really understand how affordances work, then what you get out of it is that you can do all sorts of freaky things. You can start playing with more weird concepts like colors, sounds, music, and use those as affordances. So, for example, in Rain World, if you have this little buddy that follows you, and if you encounter a predator for the first time, it will show you a flashing red symbol. If you encounter a new type of food, it will show you a flashing green symbol. We have associations with these colors. If we see a flashing red symbol, we immediately know that something is up and we should be careful. And similarly, when you encounter predators in this game, the music gets much more intense. So you kind of have this have these clues that something is wrong and you should be careful. Affordances, unfortunately, are rather limited. They're not very advanced. If you have mechanics that don't really match up with the real world or weird objects like that, or perhaps you have very complex systems, then unfortunately there's not much that you can do with affordances. Affordances is mostly useful for the simple stuff, like as I showed, spikes, fire, basic enemies, etc. And so we might need more different methods for different mechanics. The second method that I found is skill gates. Skill gates are well, first off, I think it's useful to understand what a skill here means. A skill, I would say, are controls, so stuff like jumping and different variations thereof. So perhaps wall jumping or jumping only in certain scenarios will count that stuff as skills. And skill gates are these different level design elements that kind of block the player's progress until they have shown that they understand this mechanic and that they perform this skill. So the most common basic example is that in most games, in most platformers, one of the very first things you'll see at the very beginning of the game is some single vertical element that you have to jump over. And this is how you demonstrate to the game that, yeah, I know how to jump. That's a skill gate. And this is useful to us for two reasons. So first off, we kind of make sure that the player knows what to do in hard challenges. In Super Meat Boy, for example, the first many stages are just skill gates, so that later in the game, when the player reaches more complicated challenges, the difficulty doesn't come from understanding the game. The difficulty comes from being skilled and having quick reflexes, etc. So if your player is near the end of the game and they still have no idea what to do, that's probably a problem that you can fix with skill gates. And skill gates also create a simple environment for understanding a mechanic. So mostly what we do with skill gates is we try to get rid of all unnecessary elements. We only create this one thing that the player focuses on, so that there isn't anything else that can kind of distract or mislead the player. We just create a very simple environment where we block the player's progress and let them figure out the mechanic. In that way, it's much easier than trying to figure out these skills later in the game. So the third method, which is my personal favorite, I think this is super clever, is the demonstrative method, because we have stuff that isn't just simple skills and very simple mechanics, so we'll need more advanced methods for creating invisible tutorials. And the demonstrative method is kind of what the name implies. We kind of demonstrate something to the player, but we don't let them participate. We just show a process from distance. So that's mostly what we do. We just show processes from a distance. Sometimes they aren't processes, and sometimes the distance isn't that serious, but mostly this is how we use them. So for example, in Half-Life 2, there's this barnacle enemy that drags you up and tries to eat you if you touch its tongue. And the first time you see that, there's this little bird that flies into a barnacle. So the first time you see it, you don't get eaten, the bird gets eaten. And from the fact that the game demonstrates you that, hey, this enemy drags you up and tries to eat you, from that you understand how this works. This is actually mostly brilliant for enemies and hazards, because we can show them from distance, and if we kind of just let the player go in blindly and try to attack an enemy without knowing what it does, then we'll often have these bad scenarios where either the player dies and they think that's completely unfair because they had no idea what was going on, or there will be scenarios where perhaps they'll kill the enemy before they understand how the enemy works and what it does. So the demonstrative method, I think, is very useful for that. So actually, this was what originally got me interested in game design, because a very brilliant use of the demonstrative method is in Deadbolt. And I was playing Deadbolt, and I noticed that there's this particular type of enemies called generals that kind of revive dead enemies. And so what the game does is it creates a mission where you go through a house, you kill a bunch of enemies, you go to a different house, kill more enemies, and then you go back to the first house. And now there's a bunch of dead enemies, but this time there's also generals. And once you enter the level, the first thing you see is that generals are reviving other enemies. So from a distance, the game kind of shows you what these enemies do. Now, if the game just started the level with a bunch of generals, then the player wouldn't have any idea what they do, and they would go in blindly and maybe kill them before understanding this mechanic. So our fourth method is trial and error, which is kind of what the name implies. We make a situation where the player almost definitely fails. We make sure that the player makes a major mistake, that they probably die or something, and then we as humans have this very nice thing with our brains that we are capable of trying to understand the causality of our failure. So we are good at figuring out why we failed. This is literally how we can teach stuff. We can just make the players fail, and then the players can try to understand why they failed and thus understand a new mechanic. The problem with this is that we don't really like failure. We don't like to lose in video games, so we don't really want to make our players unhappy most of the time. And if we use this too much, then the players will get very frustrated. What we mostly try to do is we make the punishment very light, so small setbacks, maybe place a checkpoint right before trial and error, and make the reason for why the player died clear. So perhaps it's an enemy that you're introducing, then the player needs to see that, okay, it's the enemy that killed me, I didn't just die for no reason. Now there's a problem where if you use this method too much, your game can be absolutely indecipherable. For example, Dwarf Fortress is a game that is infamous for being extremely confusing. And it's a good game, but most people drop it after 15 minutes because they have no idea what the hell is going on. This game uses almost only trial and error as the way of teaching player new things, and this can lead to the players being very confused, and this can lead to the players being very frustrated. So be careful with trial and error. One very interesting thing that you can do is you can make the player win accidentally. And winning by accident is still making a mistake. And even if we win by accident, we can still try to understand the reason why we won, and once again learn new mechanics. And this is used very rarely, but I think this is very interesting. So you'll have games like N++, where there is a level where you have to you have to do a completely bonkers skill where you do this weird combination of jumps on different slopes to gain massive vertical momentum. And it would be very hard to explain that to a player. There's a lot going on here, and trying to just write that in text would annoy the players very much, and it would take a lot of time. But the game doesn't use any text whatsoever to teach how this works. The game just drops you in this stage, and from this stage you immediately know what to do. And the reason why is because the game very cleverly places these sort of coins in your way, so that the most convenient way to get these coins is actually to perform this skill. So the player runs up and grabs these coins, and by grabbing these coins, they accidentally do what the game wanted them to do. So they teach this this very complex skill with no words whatsoever, and this completely blew my mind. And lastly, we have one more thing to cover, which is context-sensitive tutorials. And this is, I think, a very clever kind of way to combine invisible and direct tutorials. And the problem that we're solving here is that we still have input left uncovered, because you can't really teach input with any of these other methods. How to tell the player that you need to press space to jump. How to tell the player that you need to press WASD to move without actually writing that in text. Because most experienced players will probably think that it's super obvious that you press WASD to move. But to some players, it can still be complicated. To some of us, to perhaps like 2% of your players, it's very valuable to understand how to actually play your game. So if you don't teach input, you can lose a lot of players. The solution is rather clever. Context-sensitive tutorials are tutorials that kind of respond to the player's actions. So if the game sees that the player understands how to use the keyboard, then the game doesn't tell anything to the player. But if the game sees that the player is struggling, only then it helps. Mostly we use this in combination with skill gates. We make the player stuck. So for example, we place a vertical element in their way, and we see that if the player is very confused for a long time, they don't understand, for example, for 10 seconds, they don't understand how to jump over this object, we tell them how to jump in our game. So compare these two little clips from Hollow Knight. This first clip is done by a normal player. They start playing the game. This is the very beginning, and you can see that they're kind of fiddling around with the controls like most of us do when we start playing games. They're kind of trying to understand what they can do, and they move through this section kind of effortlessly, and you'll notice that there is no tutorial at all. The game is not really telling the players anything. They're just going through this, and they're having no problems. They're kind of experimenting, but they're going through it like most normal players, and the game doesn't use any direct teaching. But then if you look at that same thing again, but this time done by a very confused player, they'll start playing the game, and now they're stuck. They don't know what to do, because they don't know that you need to press X to attack. And then the game, after like 5 seconds, it shows that you need to press this button. And then there's the same thing with jumping. The player is stuck here in this hole, and they're confused for like 5 seconds, and so the game decides to tell them how to jump. And the game only shows that if you're stuck for a while. So that this way we kind of only teach directly to those who need to be taught directly. And to sum up everything that I kind of said here, we have these 5 different methods how we can create tutorials that the player doesn't see. So mostly we'll go with affordances for the simple stuff. If we need to show the player some kind of skills or inputs, then we'll try to use skill gates, sometimes in combination with context-sensitive tutorials. And then for more complex and weird mechanics, we can try using the demonstrative method and trial and error. And this won't work for all games and all mechanics, but when you do use it, it's pretty great. It skips you the part where you have to explain everything in text to the player, which can be extremely annoying. And I want to end this talk on a little note that I heard in a GDC talk. And the idea is that if you ask a game designer what their favorite tutorial is, a lot will answer with very similar answers, like something like Half-Life 2 or Portal will come up a lot. In Portal, actually, almost all of the game is a tutorial, and nobody really notices that. Most people don't even notice that Portal is almost entirely a tutorial, and that's actually a really brilliant tutorial. So the idea is that the best tutorial is one that nobody notices. And that's actually all for me. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask if we have time. Too much to count. Mostly I used two-dimensional platformers though, because in those it's very easy to understand kind of what the level design is doing. But I think I went through roughly 80, 90 games to see these different types of tutorials. No, I bought some of them, but mostly I watched different video playthroughs, etc. Because I don't have infinite money, unfortunately, not yet. I have tried. Yeah. Unfortunately, for my global game jam game, we really ran out of time and we really couldn't bother with invisible tutorials. But some simple skill gates and some simple affordances, they take almost no time, and so we did try some of those. And for a game project that I kind of started working on, I also tried using different demonstrative, like the demonstrative method, or I tried using context-sensitive tutorials. When you actually start paying attention to it, it's not that hard to create. It's often just hard to understand which is the right method, and sometimes it's really hard to understand how to even teach something invisibly. Sometimes it may not be possible, but yeah, I've tried, and it surprisingly works. I have not played Eve Online, unfortunately. Well, I've not played the game, so I can't say. But I'm personally not. I don't play a lot of games like that where they teach you too much information, because sometimes I do get scared away at the very beginning if there's like a 40-minute tutorial that explains every little thing, and it sometimes results in information overload. But if the game kind of spreads that out a little bit, then I can't speak for that game, but you can pull off a game like that with interesting and good tutorials. Yeah, I know that. I haven't played it, but I have seen bits of it. Yeah, I definitely know where this concern is coming from, because mainly the problem with invisible tutorials is that I have absolutely no idea what to do with strategy games. Because Hearts of Iron is it's very strongly a strategy game, and those often have very abstract mechanics that are very hard to teach invisibly. And frankly, a lot of these methods don't work as well in strategy games. They work better with games that have some kind of movement and action. Games like platformers or first-person shooters. For strategy games, you can certainly try using affordances and skill gates, but how to pull off those more complex methods, I think that's a question still up in the air. Uh, Yeah, with fighting games, it's also kind of problematic, because in fighting games, I'd actually say the tutorials are the main reasons why not a lot of people pick up fighting games. Because, for example, I tried picking up fighting games, and immediately I got overwhelmed with this information in these tutorials, because I haven't had prior experience. So obviously, I'll look in the tutorial. The tutorial is 2 hours long, so I'll get extremely confused. Now, what I think a fighting game can do, however, is try to teach teach those mechanics one by one, and try to spread them out through the game. Not try to teach every mechanic at the very beginning, but try to kind of spread them out. It's hard to pull off an invisible tutorial in a fighting game because those also use more abstract mechanics. But I think stuff like skill gates or the demonstrative method can be used well in fighting games, given that you don't put it all in the very beginning of the game. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes really the best thing you can do is just try to communicate with your player so the player understands. Yeah, and that can also work really well. At that point, it's no longer an invisible tutorial, but if the player understands what's going on and they're fine with it, then that's also okay. Okay, no more questions, then I think that's all for me.
So, next speaker is here. um, Applause to Elvis, the next presenter. Yay!
Hi, my name is Elvis. Today let's talk about how to win a hackathon. The thing is simple. Um, just make a good game, and that's it. And Yep, thank you. So now the game. So the rules are simple. Nah, I'm just joking. So yeah. So let me explain. Let me tell you who I am. Uh, in the context of competitions. So the first time I won a competition was in 2005 in Dago. Um After that, I didn't participate because I organized the competitions, but I participated in three hackathons. So this one we got the second biggest prize. This one was in Riga. We had a game where you had this uh, I I don't know how it's called, like expander or something like that, and you had to jump with it. Then we got second place in Minsk with the Pew Pew game. You had to shoot on the screen with a gun. And this weekend we actually won with an AR game. So I will tell you how I usually choose ideas so that I am always in top three. And maybe I'm lucky, but I think I have found the formula how to win. So let me tell you how to do that in a few steps. So the first one is preparation. Uh, I suggest you prepare the idea and the team before the game jam. That's what we did with Maris. We agreed that we'll be in a team. We agreed on the idea that we will be able to make in 48 hours, and we were a bit discussing the idea. We originally had another idea, so do it really like months before, maybe a month before the hackathon, because you will sleep with the idea and then you will change your mind, like, no, this will not win. You will change it. So we were discussing with Marius the idea until we found one that will definitely win, like, and let's go with that. uh, and The next one is prepare the list of so the battery is dead, I guess. um, Prepare the list of inventory, so that you have everything with you to actually make the game. So here is my list. So it's in Latvian, but let me explain a few of these things. I actually, those that are not checked, I forgot. I added those only after the hackathon. So prepare the list like a month before, not 2 days before the hackathon. This one was really important. It was really hard for me to write on my keyboard because it's a bit higher than usual keyboards, and it really, like, I would save some time if I actually had this wrist rest for the keyboard. So a mouse, I forgot it. I got one from Maris, but it didn't work at all. So it was I wasted lots of time because of the bad mouse. Yeah, so the mat for the mouse. You should definitely take it with you, because the tables can be from different materials, and you don't know how your mouse will react with it. So prepare that before. I actually had to go to the market to buy one. So the devices, whatever devices your game runs on, prepare all the hardware and make a list of it. So we need only an iPad for this project. So this is just for me personally, because I wanted to have some random T-shirt like I always have. So I had to prepare the T-shirt for the finals. So yeah, some clothes, because you will be there for 48 hours. So make a list of clothes you have to have, so that you don't have to think during the hackathon, what to wear. You already have all the clothes prepared. So this is especially for men. You want to if you want to shave, if you want to look good. Okay. Yeah. So the extender, it's extension cord. Yes, extension cord. Prepare that because usually there are problems with you don't know if there will be problems or not with the power for your devices. So I suggest you take a monitor with you because working on a small laptop screen is a pain in the ass. Usually you want two screens, one for programming, one for some maybe documentation or the output of your builds or something like that. I have. Oh yeah, keyboard. Yes. So the checked ones are on the bottom. Keyboard definitely writing on laptop's keyboard is a pain in the ass. Yeah. So toothbrush. This is especially for me because I have to burn calories every day. Oh yeah, I actually have the mouse mat. So yeah, this is just my list, but you will probably have your own list. But you can take some ideas from my list. The next one is the idea. Uh, I suggest making something unique that maybe nobody has done before. Uh, Maybe you have seen something cool that somebody has done, but maybe nobody in Latvia. But learn some new freaking skills and do something cool. Don't create another platformer. You will definitely lose. Don't do that, please. You can go to Unity tutorials and learn new technology or what in a day. Do that before the hackathon and create something really cool. Creating another clone of Flappy Bird or something like that will not make you a winner. Please don't do that. This is not a game jam. This is a big difference. You can go to game jam and just jam, create a Flappy Bird or whatever, have fun. This is it should be fun, but it is a bit less of a fun. But when you get the prize, it's a lot of fun. So consider what are your priorities. If you go there just to jam, maybe that's not the best place to jam. Because the organizers actually expect the ideas to be good and at least this hackathon in Ventspils, it was oriented on business, but there were some jam ideas, and I don't think they like that a lot. The plan. Uh, so here is my plan. How I did it. As you can see, we created a realistic plan that can be done in 48 hours. We didn't do actually the one thing, and I will explain you why we didn't do that. But so these are all the things for my game, but your list will probably totally differ. And so when you try to make these tasks as granular as possible, like as you can see, like win-lose scene. It takes like maybe 20 minutes for me because I have never created a game in Unity, so this Unity was something new for me. So this probably for you will take like 1 minute, but still add this so that you can check. There are two reasons for that. One is when you actually have granular tasks, you can actually measure how much time will it take, and and when you see the list, can you actually do it in 48 hours? And you see it's a long list, then drop something out. You will definitely not do that in 48 hours. The next thing is adding small tasks to the list actually makes you feel the progress. So if you add one scene, you make a check and you are like proud of some progress. If you have a task like I don't know, implement AI, then you can spend like a day on that, and you will feel no progress at all, and then you'll be frustrated, and then on the second day you'll be like, I will not do that, and just not finish the game. So try to make the tasks as small as possible. So the next thing is the pitch. What you have to do, what you have to include in the pitch. So tell about your team, because the pitch is really like don't underestimate the pitch. This is the only thing that jury will actually take into account. If your pitch is bad, you will definitely lose, even if your game is pretty okay. If it's really, really, really good and pitch is really, really bad, you still have a chance to win, but don't do that. Try to also make the pitch good so that your chances are a lot higher. So in the pitch, so there will be jury members that maybe haven't seen, like in Garage. In this Ventspils hackathon, they actually came and play all the games. But in Garage, which is pretty big event, they have no chance to play all the games. So the only way they will measure what you have done and your idea is from the pitch. So if it's bad, then you definitely will lose. So what you have to include in the pitch, tell about your team, tell how cool the team is, how professional you are, because if you are some losers, then probably this will reduce your score a bit. Tell about the game idea so that it's pretty clear what the game is about. Tell about your the story and the vision of the game. So why did you create the game? What problems maybe it solves, or like there is no, I don't know, like there is no this kind of game with these kinds of rules, with these kinds of this kind of graphics, and I think there are players that actually want that. So you kind of solve some problem. So you have to find, like, creating another game that looks the same as one game on Steam, or maybe 2 or maybe 10. That doesn't solve anything. You just participate in the oversaturation of the market. So business model. Unfortunately, in Latvia, and actually not only in Latvia but also in other, we participated in Minsk hackathon. They also give score for business model. I understand that business model for game, like what? What is the business model? You put it on the store and you just sell it. Like where is the business? So why do I have to think for that? But if you want to get more, like, bigger score, think about the business model. Think something crazy, like I don't know, putting some selling T-shirts with branded T-shirts in your game, or some hidden commercials in your game, or ads, or I don't know. Like we thought of some random idea that will actually, for our AR game, we will sell markers that they put in the stores, and then you'll have custom content in by visiting every store, so that we actually don't earn money from the players but from the stores. So this was like our business idea, and then they saw, oh, these guys actually thought about business. So unfortunately, you have to do that, even if you will in the end still put it on the Steam and just sell it. But if you want, I'm telling you how to maybe cheat a little bit, but I don't know if it's cheating, but at least it's adding scores, adding to your score. So marketing, yeah, think about the marketing and maybe create some. This is also usually rated in hackathons here. You have to create Twitter and social accounts that we actually didn't. But if you want score, then create some Twitter, Facebook, Instagram accounts. Ask your friends to follow, and then you can actually present that, hey, our game has some traction. This will add to your final score. So add what you are. So what will be your next steps? When will you go to market? How long will it take to finish your game? What is the plan when you start marketing? Everything, like everything, the plan, the full plan. That will definitely increase your score in the end. And a demonstration of your game. Put a video. We did a video in the slides, so I suggest you doing the same. If you want to show the game, you have only 4 minutes. Starting the game, skipping menus or something like that, that takes the valuable time from your pitch. Don't do that. Just put the video in and tell that you did this in the past 48 hours, and that's it. And work on the video in the last day. Be sure that you actually show every aspect of your game. So what not to do in the hackathon? So sleep. You should sleep. But what I suggest is I slept the first day a bit too much, but the second day I didn't sleep at all. But I suggest sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night. Yeah, that's not a lot, but if you want to actually create something cool and you need a lot of time, then one way is to plan the idea so that you can actually sleep a lot, but then probably it will be not as good as if you sleep only 6 hours during the hackathon. Um, so yeah, prepare an idea that is easy to make, and you will get more time to sleep. Uh, so don't create tutorials. if if you are in a jam, be sure you can create whatever you want, but by tutorials I mean don't pay attention to small details. We actually didn't have any shadows in our game in the end. We had such a cool environment, like perfect 3D art in the game, like with all the shadows and bloom and stuff. And we didn't have anything from that in the final game because we didn't have time. And we didn't want to waste time on that because that's not important. Nobody will, that will maybe give you half a point more, but that's not important. So don't pay attention to small details. Like if you have some glitch in the game or you die somewhere where you shouldn't, just don't jump there and don't make a video of this part dying there. Don't pay attention to small details. Just show the mechanics and say that you will fix everything after the jam, after the hackathon. uh, so another important thing, stop freaking making funny games, joke games. That, like, every hackathon has like 50 or more percent joke games. Please stop doing that. You look ridiculous. Jury will not add you points. They will actually reduce points for joking on the stage because you are not serious about that. That's, yeah, in the jam, sure, you can joke around and make a circus there, but hackathon is, it's business oriented. So they will it's not, if you are joking in the first pitch of the idea, then you are not a serious guy and you will not win the hackathon. Be serious about the idea. And actually that's hurting our community too, because if some media or somebody comes to a hackathon and they see our ridiculous circus on the stage, they think that we are some fools. Like they don't treat us as serious people, because, oh, games, that's something like stupid stuff. So this is doing bad for you and for the whole community. Start making serious games, even if like you can add some jokes or maybe make them the funny story like Flappy Bird, but at least don't uh, like be an idiot on the stage. Tell about the idea serious. Why it's birds? Why shooting at the pigs and stuff? Why the story? Because kids like that or something like that. Just explain that seriously. Um, so yeah, the next thing is prepare and repeat your pitch. Don't prepare the pitch like 5 minutes before the actual pitch. Prepare it a few hours before. Repeat it in your mind a few times, and until you actually know the key points. And I suggest maybe putting key points in your phone in some notes, and then you can just some random words for each slide, like not random but key words for each slide, and then you can remember what you wanted to say there. And while you actually note down those keywords, you will actually remember the pitch better. And maybe a bit of a cheating, but try to talk to jury, try to show them show them the game, because if you don't show them, if you don't catch them somewhere, hey, look at my game, then the only way they will rate your game is the pitch, and if your pitch is bad, then your points will be reduced. And ask for the criteria to the jury. So what will they rate? If they say the business isn't important for us, it's only a hackathon for actually new ideas, then don't concentrate on business. If they say business is really important, then concentrate on that. So ask for criteria and actually show the game to jury. So that's about it. And so about the Game Hack 2020 itself. So this was the game that we created. Um, so it was called Cyber City with the Cybertruck. Uh, so one guy is driving around the city, and the other guys they are shooting him in the AR. So the board is like on the floor, and you're running around with your mobile phone or iPad and shooting the runaway. And yeah, so we used the Cyber City as a way to get maybe some hype, the Cybertruck to get maybe some hype, because like why choose random theme if you can choose something popular? Yeah, so some pictures. So this was the introduction pitch. What was interesting for this? No, these were actually some middle pitches. But what was interesting for this game hack was that there were limited spots in the hackathon. So you had to pitch your idea, and then everybody voted. And if you didn't get enough votes, then you actually don't get to making the idea. And so that was really risky. We were risking not actually making our game at all. So yeah, try to convince everybody to vote for your game. But I hope that this doesn't happen any more in hackathons, because this was ridiculous. Actually, good games could be kicked out because they don't have enough friends or something like that. That's crazy. So this was the spot where we actually worked. It wasn't big. There were 10 teams working on games, like 10 tables. Yeah, there were Kristaps from Cursors. Probably you know him. Uh, Here we were testing other games. Yeah, so if you have free time, walk around and maybe try other games too. Yeah, so playing the games. So here we are testing our game, and in the end, we won. So that's it. And so, do you have any questions about hackathons? Yep. Against me? No. If you follow these, you can win. Like uh, ma- the idea is to maybe the correct title. I just wanted the clickbaity title, but the correct title would be how to increase your chances to win. Probably because you will not 100% win if you follow this. Because if any other team like us will follow these rules, then we will compete for the first place. Uh, well, no, I had no experience with Unity, like zero. I had no experience with AR, zero. So I actually learned everything during the hackathon. Actually, I didn't even know how to do networking in Unity. So I wasted like 5 hours to learn how networking is done in Unity. So that's not the case that I had an experience. We just had a fun idea, and I was dedicated to make it. Any other questions? Yep. May yeah, but yeah, it's the idea is good, but we actually have to find the business model that will work. We are not sure if this will work, and it takes lots of investment. Like the €1,000 that we won, it's nothing. We actually have to work somewhere also, and we don't have so much time. If somebody gave us money, we have to waste time, not waste time, but invest time to actually find somebody who gives us money, and then leave our jobs to finish it. So I don't know. Maybe if we find somebody. Any other questions? Oh yeah. Maybe when the camera is off. Uh, so about the news of the association. So we have 3 new members. In February, we accepted Artis Krams. He's here. So congrats, member number 88. Yeah. So Maris Putens, member number 89. And Maris Bergs, member number 90. But he's not here, I guess. But still applause to him. So we are also having a conference on the 4th of April. I hope we'll now not have to cancel it. And we are also having Game of the Year awards. You can still submit your game for it. And BRSD 21st of March is coming pretty fast. So prepare your game ideas, submit the game, follow these rules, and if you follow them, except the business part, the marketing part, but the rest you should follow, and maybe you will win. So that's it. Thank you. So now, as you know, the Corona is pretty popular. I have it too. So here it is. So as you maybe can guess, the game. So the first question will be pretty easy. So I will have a question. You have to answer it. Who the first one gets the Corona beer. So what's the name of our game? Yes, Cyber City. So you get the first one. So now I will show you the pictures. You guess the game, and you get the beer. So 3, 2, 1. Yes, Halo. So this is how. This is the Halo. So the next one will be a bit harder. 3, 2, 1. How? Yes, Half-Life. You get the beer. So so that's it. Thank you for coming to the meetup, and see you in the meetup 83.
Thank you. This is it for official part. If anyone have something to say, it's open mic time. It won't be recorded, of course. So if anyone come here and talk, and thank you for coming. See you next time. Ooh.